Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where as a continual refinement of the rules, I have decided that we need to actually get ourselves a bit of a science bonus going into the Gemini series. Specifically, what we need is enough to get advanced flight control to get the Mark II command pod. We were already heading this way. We wanted to get the RCS thruster blocks, and we're going to want those as well. So we're just going to get enough science to get advanced flight control as a bonus for finishing the early orbital period. So let's hop over here and toss in, this is going to be what, 60 science that we need? So just that amount there, we're going to grab that technology, and now we need to make ourselves the Titan II rocket. So the Titan II, let me just swap on over here. The Titan II is this bad boy here. So we can see it lifting off in this teeny tiny little picture. I have some larger pictures here. They're basically all the same thing. As we can see, there were not significant changes throughout the Gemini program. We can definitely take a bit of a closer look at this. We see two engine nozzles, although technically this was a single engine. It did have two nozzles. This looks a lot like a 2.5 meter fairing, although it was probably actually a 3 meter fairing. And then it tapers together into the two-man capsule up here. And then we've got this guy. Note the lack of launch escape tower. So we're definitely not going to be having that. We're going to be making something along these lines. So let's hop over, and we are going to use the Mark II command pod. We know we need something up here that looks like a parachute pack to me. And actually, let me just pull up the Gemini spacecraft here. So we've got a bit of a cutaway here of the actual spacecraft. So this up here, that actually kind of looks like a reaction wheel or something. But this is the spacecraft that we're going to be having here. This has definite RCS components in it. That looks like fuel tanks of some description. It's a little bit different. No doubt about that. We're going to be making something that looks visually similar to it and maybe performs similarly. Maybe. That's a little bit complicated, of course. So, yeah, that's definitely going to be a bit of a thing. No doubt about that. So let's get this going. We know that we're going to need some sort of a pack up here, right? And we know that we're going to need... This has a built-in reaction wheel in KSP, so we don't need a reaction wheel up here. I believe that that was a reaction wheel, but don't quote me on that. That may or may not have been a thing. I know that there was a nose cone up here, so we can definitely do something like tossing in... Oh, that service bay is very tiny. Mark II is seriously a 3 meter? Just straight up? That's interesting. Okay, I didn't expect that for some reason. I expected the Mark II to be about the same size. So I guess that means that what we don't need then, looking at this again, this tapering here, I believe, is entirely part of the spacecraft, because we can see here there's definitely a taper there. So we're just going to have this be flush. In that case, this is just going to be a flush 2 meter fairing here, or I guess 2.5 meter in KSP. So that'll be absolutely fine. We're going to need a nose cone on here for sure. And it's going to be not that size of nose cone. We'll need a miniature nose cone. That'll end up going about there. And we could have this be our parachute pack in this one. It doesn't necessarily look like that's where the parachutes were before, but they might actually have been there in history. I don't actually know. That's fine. We're going to put in our experiment storage unit like we did before. Miniature rocket nose there. It does look like that rocket nose was probably jettisoned at a certain point later on. And we could certainly... I mean, these are all... Okay, this is actually a 1.8 meter fairing. Okay, noted. So this would be 2.5 meter here. So we are actually able to get some amount of adaptation in there. That's fine. We don't have a teeny tiny decoupler. What's the weight of this miniature rocket nose? That's something we need to figure out here. I think this is probably irrelevant to have this be a weight there. So that's okay. Comms were, I think, more built in, but we can definitely make this feel kind of like an evolution of the Mercury capsule by having it be a high gain antenna there. That's fine. And then we can do a very similar parachute approach. We know that our parachutes were overkill for the previous one, and we could have this be a nose cone parachute. That is actually an option. I think that's not a terrible option. In which case we would have this be probably a pair of drogue chutes. And then out here, we could have a backup chute. And in reality, we're probably not going to end up using that backup chute, so it would end up being something like this. Yeah, that's probably fine. So then I definitely want to have some other things on here. Now, a Science Junior is going to be difficult to fit in here. No doubt about that. I do think we should start bringing Science Juniors along, but that definitely doesn't fit, right? So maybe we can do a radial Science Junior somewhere. Not there, but we can maybe see about fitting one into like a fairing or something, but all we've got is a 1.25 meter service bay right now. So that does make things complicated for us on the science front. That's for sure. We're going to need some amount of RCS fuel tanks. We've got like these rounded monoprop tanks, which is not necessarily a terrible thing. And then Rockamax is not the size that we'd be looking for. FL would be the size. Okay. So we would end up going for probably something kind of along the lines of this. And then just slapping on something like a Terrier. It'd be a little bit awkward for sure. And then as far as the monoprop tanks go, we could have them, well, I'd like this to be a little bit taller, about here or so, would be the way I would like that to go. So we could have something fitted in here. We could have this be... A structural fuselage is actually not what we're looking for. Do we have access to fairings? No, we don't. We don't have any access to fairings at this time. Okay, so this is going to be mildly awkward. I definitely want to use monoprop here. That's for sure. Is this the only monoprop tank that we have? Let's see here. Fuel drain valves. I think this is the only monoprop tank. So we might have to do something somewhat awkward, like, say, this. These were more internal. I suppose we could clip them inside. So if we were to do something like this, and then rotate these guys on their axis like that, and clip them inside. Like that. It's not, you know, very realistic because we've got fuel stored in there. But, I mean, this entire series hasn't been all that realistic, let's be honest. So they had those about there. So that's fine for our power pack. I'm content with that for our power pack. As far as our actual science goes, we could do something like a service bay and Science Junior here. Like that, and then have it strutted together. That's a theoretical option. This would, in reality, have a fairing here, right? But we don't have the capability of doing that. And then this whole thing would eventually come back with a heat shield, like right here. So we would be returning this. We would go for a 1.875 meter heat shield, like that. And then we would need a TD-18 decoupler, and that would go here. And it would be something kind of like this. And I actually don't want it in this position. I would want the struts to be about here. So that would just be held together kind of like that. And we can, of course, call this the Gemini 3. Yes, we're starting on Gemini 3. I want to point that out. The first two Geminis were uncrewed test flights. So that'll be fine. We've got our monoprop. We've got our RCS thruster blocks. What we don't have here, of course, is all of our science experiments. I also want to rotate our Science Junior here so it's inline. There we go. I don't like the way that this strut connector connected there. That's mildly better. It's not great. Okay. This is not going well. This is not going well at all. Maybe we should actually connect it from, like, here directly to here, like this. That's probably a better way to do it. Okay, so that's all good for now. This is our Gemini capsule, and we're, of course, going to stock this out with a few things. Now, in reality, these were still pretty short duration. They didn't have anything like any power generation or anything like that. We're just going to stock some rechargeable battery packs for now. And that's kind of anachronistic, but that's okay. We're going to put in a thermometer. We're going to put in a mystery goo containment unit, just the one. And we're going to put in a barometer. The majority of our science we're going to get out of this is the Science Junior, now that we're actually including that. Oh, I also want to say we are going to be doing the Vakshad Soviet program, but that will be following the Gemini program. The two ran relatively concurrently, but we're going to be splitting them up here. So that'll be fine. We don't require any additional science in here. We could toss in like a Kerbal engineering system, but I really don't feel like we should. So for now, it'll be something along the lines of this for our science section. We could, in theory, move the science section to be recovered. So it would end up being something like this. And then this decoupler would be here. Yes, that is correct. And then the struts would be moved to be here. The other option, of course... Oh, this isn't in quad couple. Let's get that in quad. There we go. The other option, of course, is to put them lower because this tapers down, but that would block our engine, and that's not really a very viable thing. So for now, we're just going to do this. It's not perfect by any means, but it kind of gets there. Kinda. Now we need to make the actual Titan II rocket. So we'll need a TD-18 decoupler here, and I'm also going to strut this here because this is a potential weak point. So we're going to drop a strut there. Perfect. And now we can expand this out to 2.5 meter because that definitely, I think, let me double check here, actually. The Titan here is, what is the fairing size on this? Or I guess the width of this stage. Actually, Wikipedia does not say. I'm sure it says in here somewhere. It does not say 3 meters anywhere in it. Okay. I wonder if it says 2.5 meters. It does not. Okay. Well, that's not helpful, but it looks to me an awful lot like that's intended to be 2.5 meter. In reality, it was probably 3 meter. So looking at the actual design of the rocket here, we can see that we've got this upper stage here. And then this going into, looks like 2 big orange tanks to me that have been repainted. And we can definitely get something, and then that's a smaller tank there. Or maybe that's the interstage. This might actually be the interstage. That would make sense. Okay. I'm a little concerned about thrust to weight here. I'm going to be honest. But that would end up meaning that we would have something like a T-32 here. And then we would want this to, of course, have a fuel adapter kind of like that. So this would be the upper stage. And then the best that we've got here would be another Terrier. This would ultimately be upgraded to a Poodle later. And then we would have a TD-25 decoupler here. We'd probably want to put in some strut connectors here just to ensure that we are going to be relatively stable throughout that connection, hopefully. And then we would have this. Well, I'd want to paint those. That looks an awful lot like either ESA or metal coloring. For now, I think the best that we can do is probably like gray and orange, or maybe just have it be white. I think that's the best we can do. If we had the ability to make this be metal colored, I'd do that. Maybe we'll do this and just pretend that this upper one is metal colored. That might be okay. So now, of course, we've got this interstage, and that interstage was a lot bigger, but that's fine, and a lot more stripey. But we certainly have ourselves a couple of big orange tanks here, and let's... Do we not have access to the big orange tank yet? We don't have access to the big orange tank. Okay, we're going to have to do that later then. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the equivalent of the big orange tanks. Now, these up here were approximately metal colored, and then the ones down below will make this one be white, and then this one can be, I guess, black and white. This isn't exactly what I want. Actually, we might be better off visually doing something kind of like this for a Gemini rocket. And if that's the case, then I kind of want this up here to be ESA colored, just to make it differentiated between the stages. This is certainly imperfect. No doubt about that. And I'm very concerned about lifting this with what we've got here. So if we used our highest thrust-to-weight engines, and we did 2 engine nozzles, I have a feeling this doesn't lift. 0.39. Yeah, I'm deeply unsurprised by that one. So we're probably going to have to do some truncation here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this be white, and I think we may consider ditching this tank. Maybe. So it would end up being something like this. That would certainly help matters, 0.47. We would need to still make this at least quad. Bare minimum. We don't have powerful enough engines to lift this at this moment, but we can certainly get the tech for it. Having this be 4 engines here is anachronistic. We're having to make some compromises here. No doubt about that. So, is this acceptable? I mean, it's 0.91 thrust to weight. We could certainly consider ditching one of these guys as well if we're changing the overall size of the rocket. I really don't like these carriers. They look awful. I suppose we could, in theory, eliminate this carrier and just have this upper stage here. So we get rid of this. That'll save us a little bit of weight and an engine redundancy. I don't mind that. 1.15 at this point. So, I mean, I would still prefer to have these in here, like this. This is definitely more representative of how the rocket actually looked. No doubt about that. But this is not going to lift off, right? We know that for a fact. 0.77. So this needs more oomph. Also keep in mind, these are T-30s, so we have no gimbaling here. In reality, we're going to need something more along the lines of, where are our T-45s? Oh, we boat-tailed them. Okay. Cool. So in reality, we're going to need something almost more, this is going to look really absurd, but almost more like this. That's 0.91. So really, it would be more like this. They're really clipping together. We need more powerful engines to lift this thing. That's for sure. That said, we're going to start to get a fair amount of science out of this. Let's put this out on the pad, and we can also bring along a scientist. We're going to bring Bob here so that we can do resets of our various science experiments. We're going to put this out on the pad. We're not going to lift this off yet, because we need to grab our Science Junior pad data. We've never even had this thing out on the pad. So I don't like the amount of engines we've had to put on here. We definitely need more powerful engines. So heavy lift rocketry is going to be fairly important. No doubt about that. We can EVA, and I don't know if we'll be able to reach the Science Junior to reset it. But we'll keep that experiment. We'll have Bob EVA here. We can grab our surface sample. And can we reach this? Yes. So we can collect this data, and we can restore. Actually, yeah, it's good to go. Beautiful. So we'll do that, and we'll keep that experiment. We'll hop in, and we're going to collect what data we can. There we go. Bob can EVA again, and he's going to climb straight on down here. We're going to restore the Science Junior. And we're going to conduct our materials study. We'll keep that experiment. And we'll collect the data and restore. And we'll run it one more time. There we go. And we'll hop in here. This is currently in the command pod. It's not supposed to be. It was supposed to be contained up here. Which apparently we can't click up here. Okay, there we go. Collect all. And okay, I guess that's the best we got. I must have lost where we were. Okay, so we'll recover this vessel and we'll grab what science we can from that. Great. So that's all fine for the time being. How much science are we actually going to get out of that? It's not going to be a lot. I think it's going to be like 40-some. Or not 40-some. It's going to be like 11. 9.6. Okay. So how much do we need to grab heavy rocketry? Because that would give us access to the Skipper, which would be a big upgrade, or the Bobcat, which I think is about the engine that we're supposed to be using here. Thrust of 374 kilonewtons. It is lower thrust than the Skipper, but we'll see if that's maybe what we want to get. We're going to have to do a launch with too many engines on here. So that's definitely something that's going to happen. The first flight here is basically just a crude test flight. All we have to do is get into orbit, and that's fine. So we're just going to launch this thing, and I wonder how the aerodynamics of it are going to go. It's going to be kind of spicy. We'll see. It'll be very interesting, to be sure. But let's get this thing up into orbit. As long as we don't go too aggressive on the gravity turn, since there's no fins, we should be fine. We've got a reaction wheel in here. We've got lots of gimbaling. My main question is, with all of the power that we have down here, do we see bending happening in any of these structural weak points? We'll find out. Off we go. We can grab our material study here, and we'll do so. And then we'll collect that, and we'll reset it and grab again in space. So that's fine. And we're going up very, very slowly, no doubt about that. Again, these engines are way too low thrust to weight for what we're asking them to do here. They're all clipped together as well. It's very awkward. Very, very awkward. But we'll lift this thing on up. Really, I feel like maybe this one should be white and this one should be striped. But looking at it, this is about the right ratio, looking at the actual photo. So, I mean, obviously we want to replace this engine. That's a pretty big deal. This, I'm not sure there's too much that we can actually do about it. But I'm just going to keep going straight up here until our apoapsis is about 25 kilometers or so. We're very low thrust to weight, no doubt about that. But we have a lot of delta V in these tanks here, so that's all absolutely fine. We may end up dropping this fuel tank, actually. Now that I think about it, that's not necessarily a terrible idea. We'll see. I'm actually a little bit concerned about how much fuel we have left here. We're not moving very fast. I think we're still too low of thrust to weight here. 18, 19, and that's a 20-kilometer apoapsis. So let's give this a little bit of a test out over this direction. Okay. It's not too bad. Cool. I'm definitely concerned about our power level of our bottom stage. That definitely requires additional work. There's no doubt about that one. But our apoapsis is getting on up there. We'll hold about here for now. We definitely need more vertical speed here. We have a lot of burn in our upper stage, but I am certainly concerned about its thrust to weight. Yes, I'm very concerned about its thrust to weight. So we're going to hold here. We need to get like a kilometer per second. We need more power in that first stage. There's no doubt about that one. So there's a few options that we can take for that. But for now, I just want to continue to push this up, and we can see our orbital velocity dropping heavily. This is unsurprising considering our thrust to weight here. I'm just going to physics warp this for right now. And we know we're going to hit apoapsis here. The first flight of this thing was suborbital to test, but that was not a crewed flight. Okay. We're definitely not going to make orbit here. I can tell you that right now. So I'm going to have Bob EVA. He's going to climb down here, and he is just going to restore the Science Junior. And we're going to hop on in. We're going to grab our materials study up here. And we'll collect any of that data that we can. Bob's going to EVA again. We're going down already, so we're going to have to restore this and just hop in. And let's flip around to retrograde here. And we're going to bring this on down. Okay. And we're going to grab our material study for flying high. And let's just test our reentry. Cool. So we have basically no thrust to weight, right? No doubt about that. I'm going to ditch all of this, and we're just going to come in with our heat shield. And we'll see how our reentry goes. So let's physics warp it up. Jeb and Bob are in some danger here, but we're definitely underpowered on that first stage. That's the core issue right now. That first stage is significantly underpowered. Okay, let's hold right here at retrograde. We're slowing down nicely, though. Our re-entry is fine. I think that's pretty clear to say. So we can definitely get our drogue chutes out. We can grab a mystery goo observation here, I suppose. We'll get some science out of this, at least. Okay, so that first stage definitely needs some work. We know that for a fact. Main chute should be out now. Should have been out a bit ago, probably, but this is fine. And yeah, we're definitely completely okay with the recovery of this. So that's fine. The first stage is underpowered. That's very clear. We're wasting way too much fuel fighting gravity at this time. It's not a lack of fuel. It's where that fuel is allocated. So let's splash this right on down. Okay, I guess we could have Bob EVA and grab a surface sample, since we apparently don't have a water surface sample. That's fine, and we could also do some resets here if we wanted to. And actually, yeah, I'm going to have Bob EVA here, and we're going to head down. We're going to open up this service bay. We're going to reset our... If I can get in here. We can't reach it? Okay. We'll collect the data here, and we'll restore that. And we'll observe that mystery goo. The goo escapes into the water. We'll also collect the data here and restore that. I don't know what we're... Oh, we're horizontal right now. Okay. We'll board here. And we'll grab our materials study. And we'll call that good enough for our science for now. We should get a good amount of science out of this, actually. So let's recover that vessel. And let's see how much science we get. I'm expecting this to be possibly enough to get our heavy lift at this point. That might be enough. Or it would be close. Very close to it, perhaps. So let's see what we've got here. Anytime now, KSP. You can do it. Yeah, 92.6. I like it. So that's enough to get us heavy rocketry. We definitely take that. And then if we hop into the VAB, we can adjust our engine power. So that'll be great. We could potentially remove all of these engines and replace them. I don't think a Bobcat is going to lift this, but we can take a look at what we've got here. We definitely have access to the Bobcat. We also have access to the Poodle. So we can see that the Bobcat's a little on the small side for this, and that's 0.36 thrust. I'm not shocked about that. I'm checking the specific impulse here. Yeah, this is much more like vacuum optimized. Okay. So that's absolutely fine. Like... Well, it's not super vacuum optimized, but we can use perhaps a skipper here. That is approximately the right size for this. It's 0.54. So we would need more power than just the skipper to lift this, or we could, in theory, think about ditching this fuel tank. Wait, we don't want to do that. That's where our RCS fuel is. Never mind. We definitely do, however, want to ditch this carrier. That's definitely a thing that we want. So we remove this strut connector. We put in a Poodle here instead. Much more appropriate for this size. And then as far as the engines go, I mean, is this a root part? That was weird. As far as the engines go, we could clip together a bunch of these. They'd be really weird. That would be enough. What if we just did two? We know that this was 2 valves, right? And then we did something like this. That is a theoretical possibility. That's 1.04. It's low on the thrust to weight. No doubt about that. But what if we did 4 of them? It's ahistorical, but we've established that that's kind of fine. That's 1.98 right there. So that seems doable. And this is just within the confines of KSP, right? We just don't have access to the engines that we need to make this actually work. So we could thrust limit this down to, say, 80% thrust. Yeah, that looks solid right there. So let's launch our real Gemini 3 now that we've gotten some engine upgrades. Phenomenal. The last one was a real launch. It was just a test launch and did not qualify for Gemini 3 because we did not achieve orbit. All we need to do is achieve orbit, and that'll be great. We'll grab what science we can on the way. And we can grab some, but a lot of our science is pre-grabbed at this point. So we'll see what we can get here. Throttle up, SAS on, and off we go with considerably more power now. Magnificent. To be clear, this still isn't going to get us, like, single stage to orbit, but that's fine. We can grab our material study and mystery goo flying low here. We can reset those once we make it into space. So that's fine. We'll start to grab those on the way up. And we're moving so much faster here. Once again, I'm going to go until we have an apoapsis of approximately... Actually, because we have so much more power here, I think we're just going to go straight up until we're at about 20 kilometers. I'm still concerned about the level of aerodynamics on this thing. So we're punching up through the atmosphere here. Look at all this speed in comparison. It's amazing what upgrading your engines will do. Absolutely great. We've still got 40 seconds of burn here. That's looking phenomenal. Once our apoapsis hits 40 kilometers, we'll start our horizontal turn. Okay, let's do this. Just want to make sure we don't have any bending here. That would be mildly awkward. We've definitely picked up a little bit of a roll, but that seems fine. Cool. Let's just head directly to the horizon at this point. I just want horizontal speed. Beautiful. And off we go here. So we know that our apoapsis is... We need a lot more horizontal speed. But our apoapsis is holding reasonably well now. So I'm just going to push this on out approximately like... so. That'll do. So we don't actually need to start our burn yet. Phenomenal. We have a coast period. So let's have Bob EVA during the coast period. And actually, I wanted to collect all of our data that we have. Collect all that. And then Bob is going to head on down. We're going to restore the Science Junior. We're going to open up the service bay. And we're going to restore the Mystery Goo containment unit. And then we're going to observe the Mystery Goo. And actually, do we need to? I'm not sure if we need to. We may have the science we need from that right now. Just the material study? Okay, we'll do the material study. We'll have Bob EVA here. Actually, our burn is in 10 seconds. We should probably do that. That would help. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Magnificent. So this is going to be like a 2-minute burn. So I'm going to physics warp this burn as we cruise our way through. We've got lots of delta V in this upper stage. No doubt about that. And these RCS thruster blocks we're primarily intending on using for the docking sequences that are part of the Gemini program. We're not quite ready for that yet. So we've got about another minute of burn time here. 40 seconds. We should probably correct our trajectory here. It's not perfect. Something a bit more like that. There we go. And our apoapsis is definitely a little up there too. We can do more controlled orbits later. I just wanted to verify that this would work after all. Okay. Cool. So this is not a perfect orbit. It's not a great orbit, even. But that's fine. We'll collect all of that data. Bob is going to head on down. He's going to grab the data out of here. So we're going to restore... Actually, we've already grabbed it, apparently. We're going to restore the Science Junior. We're going to conduct the material study again. And then we're going to collect the data, and we're going to close the doors. I'm not going to do it another time because I want to get the in-orbit high data. So that'll be fine. Once we hit the apoapsis, we're going to do a retrograde maneuver and bring these guys right on home. So we're going to bring this down to somewhere around 20 kilometers. We'll be fine. And let's warp on over. Cool. We'll grab some flying high data on the way, and that'll get us some decent science. So we'll warp on over to the retrograde position here. And get over to the actual position. There we go. And 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Phenomenal. Watching the periapsis here. That'll do. We no longer need this fuel, so we'll ditch that. And this should be absolutely fine to recover all of this. So at this point, we are just going to warp on forward. This is physics warping. We're continuing to physics warp. Now we're time warping. Okay, cool. So we're just going to fall on down here. And we'll hit the atmosphere. Now, let's flip this guy on around to surface retrograde. And let's physics warp our way down. Phenomenal. So we should have absolutely no problem braking here. We're moving a little quick because our apoapsis is high. Technically, if we wanted to be, smart about it, we would have burned at the periapsis, but I wanted a bit of a stress test of this reentry. It's not really all that stressful, but I want to get a feel for how this thing slows us down, and this heat shield is doing a very good job of it. Unfortunately, we're not able to really hold attitude here with physics warp on. Mech Jeb might be able to, but Jeb can't. So we're going to have to hold attitude here. Yeah, even a 2x time warp pulls us off axis a decent amount. For the time being, that's not very acceptable. Looks like we're coming in for a land landing. That's, not ideal, but it's fine. We don't have flying high data available here, apparently. Science Junior is locked. For some reason, I thought we reset it. Okay, well, it doesn't actually matter. But that is slightly upsetting. Okay, I'm going to warp us down now that we're moving slowly enough. I don't think that being off axis is actually going to be a problem. Drogues out. Crew report over the mountains. Temperature scan over the mountains. That's a nice one. And main chute out. We're not using the backup. We're going to grab an EVA report once our chute's open. And we might roll down this mountain a wee bit. We'll see. This is not a phenomenal place to land, if I'm honest. Okay, let's have Bob EVA here. We're going to grab our EVA report and hop on in. And let's warp on down here. I'm going to keep SAS on here in hopes that we don't tip over and roll down the mountain, because that would be problematic. We do have a second parachute if we need it. Okay, our heat shield blew up. We are rolling a bit. We'll grab our atmospheric pressure scan. We'll grab our mystery goo observation. I think because of the direction of our roll, we'll be fine. I'm going to collect all of the data that we can, grab our crew report, grab our temperature scan. We're going to have Bob EVA. We're going to grab an EVA report and a surface sample. We're going to hop in. We're going to collect all of that data. We're going to have Bob EVA again. We're going to grab a second surface sample. We're going to climb down over here. We're going to restore the Science Junior. Losing the heat shield is sad, but it's okay. And we'll do a Science Junior here. And we'll collect that data and restore. And we'll conduct the material study, hop back in, and let's recover that. I will call that a successful test. So we're going to get our pay for Gemini 3 here. I'll just mark that off on the list. And of course, Gemini 4 is going to be next. And awkwardly, between 3 and 4, they changed from regular, like Arabic numerals into Roman numerals. And I don't know why they did that. But 3 is with the number 3, and 4 is in Roman numerals IV. I don't have an explanation for it. There probably is one, but that's the way it worked. Cool. So we got 58.9 science out of that. We also need to get our pay. There we go. Phenomenal. And with that, it's well past time to put a cut in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, it's Gemini 4 time with Roman numerals. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Shadow Wolf, Andy McGar, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12UK, Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.